The new world order is starting now. We can see it playing out in the world in front of us at this moment. What happened in Venezuela, what happened in Iran, what's been happening in Ukraine, what China has been doing, none of it's happening in a vacuum. This is a reset of the system. Okay, no global empire lasts forever, and we are heading into a pretty crazy new world, one where tech and ideas beyond the nation state are going to take precedence. And how you navigate this as an investor will determine your ability moving forward to either become part of the permanent AI underclass or to thrive in the new world order. Let's get into it. So, we right now are in a world in flux. You've probably noticed, okay? The post-World War II system is starting to break down. The rules-based international order is becoming a bit of a joke, okay? The old arrangement still exists on paper, but does it look stable or sustainable to you? Is anything that's been happening over the last few years feel right? No. Trade is no longer free. Was trade ever free? I don't know. But anyway, certainly it's become a very political issue now. Whether we look at free trade deals, pushing people out of free trade deals, where military bases are built, the oil markets, all that stuff. It's all being pulled as political levers. More importantly than ever, China's need to ascend and America's need to stop their ascension is probably the big global tug pull that we're seeing right now. And as it stands, this century will likely be China's, unless the USA can derail their economy. Okay? Capital also has never been more free to move around. We're seeing it become more geopolitically strategic. Millionaires and billionaires are no longer stuck living in one country. They go everywhere. Okay? China became the factory of the world. Shocking that America outsourcing most of its industrial capacity to another country would lead to problems. Japan has become the world lender. Okay, the yen carry trade is a real risk to markets still at this point. Europe, there's still some big economies. Italy's like the 8th or 10th biggest economy in the world or something like that, which is pretty surprising. But Europe has become a major consumer bloc. Weak on commodities, weak on innovation. The US out there, meanwhile, enforcing the whole system through the dollar as reserve currency, doing it through financial carrot and stick approaches, as well as the military. Whenever they find somebody they don't like, they go and take their shit. It's been like that for a while, of course. But it's hard to compete with this simple reality. China is the world's manufacturing superpower. 28%, almost 29% of manufacturing. This is in 2023. It's probably a slightly larger number now. And that's the big stuff, right? China's going all in on tech, electric vehicles and rare earth minerals and all this kind of stuff. It's all being made in China, okay? Look right down across the other big economies. China's so far in the lead, it's not even funny, okay? Back in the day, countries that played by the rules got access to markets, capital, energy, and military protection. Those that broke the rules faced sanctions and exclusion. Okay, this is the practical dynamic that propped up globalization, even if it was rarely spoken about directly. The problem is that system is more under threat than it's ever been. The old world order is decaying, and it's decaying fast due to the new realities of the global economy. Things being more interconnected. The rise of China, the rise of AI, and the implications for AI on everything, really. But who benefited from the old system? Of course, multinational capital. America, American corporations, asset prices inflated, investors benefited, but of course the gains are never evenly shared. This is a picture of the stock market, okay? It's crazy, especially the recent years. Wild, wild moves, man. The investor class, of course, always does well, but it's always been like that in history. There will always be the top 10% of society, and the idea of trying to make everybody equal just doesn't work out. And the New World Order is not going to be about equality, to make it very, very clear for you, okay? But the West, and their relative level of importance in the new global economy, in the New World Order, that's a different question. Because you have to remember, the people really in charge, transnational capital, they really don't care about countries in the West or any of this kind of stuff. We can see this through the immigrant crises and the flooding of these societies with the others, okay? We can see that with the loss of manufacturing, the self-inflicted harm from gutting their own energy industries, like we saw in Germany, with shutting down the nuclear power plants, and now they're screwed because Russia took away their energy, and now they're losing all their energy imports from the Middle East. These are extremely susceptible to global fluctuations while actually having very little power to project and change anything, okay? Factories have moved, work's been offshored, supply chains have been moved overseas, industrial depth reduced. Now, America kept the money, the software, and the military power, okay? America's military power is definitely not to be faded, but as we're seeing even now in Iran, the ability for America to project itself in the way that it believes that it can halfway across the world is not necessarily true. And you know that China and Russia are very keenly watching what is happening in Iran right now. They are testing the weapons systems. A lot of Russian and Chinese tech currently sitting over there. Now, of course, the implications if things continue to get worse in Iran are massive. We're talking a potential for a world war here, which is very scary. Okay? But even though America kept its military might and is still the center of global financial capital, much of the real economy has moved elsewhere. You can see the offshoring short history here. It's very interesting, actually. So, why is the old order ending now? Because the old model depended on compliance. And as different countries are becoming more and more powerful, they're complying less and less. They're forming their own groups like BRICS, okay? They're having their own independent policy, and they're less interested in hearing the dictations from Washington because it ends up being so self-interested for one party, leaving the other parties to pick up the scraps, okay? The big powers now, China, Russia, India, Brazil, are getting to be too big to pressure, at least to do it cheaply, okay? Russia, China, and the others want leverage outside of the old system. They want to create a new system. This is what BRICS is about. And with the USA and their misadventure here right now in Iran, that order is crumbling even more. Where are the NATO allies? Why did they not show up when America summoned them? It's an interesting question. The shift we're seeing right now is where fragmentation starts. The US-led world order starts to fall apart. The prominence and importance of the petrodollar become challenged. Throughout all that, one thing that's going to remain true is that you are not safe on the internet, guys. You got to get yourselves a VPN, and ideally a good one, which is why I want to give a quick shout out to today's sponsor. Here in the high-stakes world of Web3, crypto, your IP address is a homing beacon for doxers, hackers, and wallet drainers. If you aren't masking your connection, your entire digital portfolio is a target. ExpressVPN is the essential security layer for every serious crypto trader. And here's the edge: execution speed. In a market where seconds decide your P&L, ExpressVPN's premium servers and lightweight protocol deliver the fastest speeds to minimize trading lag. Wallet privacy, this is really important. This shields your identity from ISPs and data brokers who log and sell your activity, preventing them from linking your physical location to your on-chain moves. I bet you didn't even know that was possible. Hardened security. Public Wi-Fi is a playground for hackers. ExpressVPN uses best-in-class encryption that would take a supercomputer billions of years to crack, keeping your private keys and your seed phrases under lock and key. It also gives you global DeFi access. You can use the virtual location feature to get around some regional blocks and access the free open internet from 105 different countries. So for all these reasons and more, I always use a VPN. Scan the QR code on the screen or click the link down below me, and for less than the cost of a single gas fee on Ethereum, you can secure your gains before the next big cycle. You can even get 4 extra months exclusively using my link. Go check it out. I hear a lot of talk about the new world order. I've been hearing about it since the 90s. Thanks, Mom. Here's the deal. Who wins? Who are the players? Who actually takes over the new economy? Asset managers, banks, central banks, capital structures around them, okay? Their power comes from capital flows and liquidity. Of course, money rules the world, right? They don't need to govern directly. They need to shape incentives, and everyone else then responds. Look at the power of the Fed as an example. Look at how much we talk about the Japanese central bank, the European central bank. Well, maybe less the European central bank. The Chinese central bank, okay? Therefore, part of the fight for the future will be who controls the money. Part of the reason the USA is so powerful right now is not just their military, of course, which is obviously very impressive, but it's the petrodollar, man. It has been the way that America has been able to control the world for the last 50, 60 years. Do something America doesn't like, lever pulled, you're out of the system. Look at Russia. Oh, we'll freeze your assets. We'll cut you out of SWIFT. Countries are tired of it. That's why a new system is slowly brewing in the background. Now look, central banks largely want to issue out central bank digital currencies, which are basically Orwellian nightmare money. Crypto wants decentralization and open competition. Both will exist at the same time, inevitably. Okay, because banks want to retain their importance. Even look in the USA right now, the fight over the Clarity Act is because banks don't want to give you the interest. They want to keep it for themselves. Of course they do. It's part of their business model. So power conflicts and alliances between these groups will play a role in determining the next world order. Okay? It's all happening on chain, though. Money is starting to happen on chain. Again, the battle between centralized, scary government systems and decentralized networks. Okay? Sovereign states, populations are caring less about efficiency and more about self-determination. Citizens want real control over energy, borders, industry, and security. Sovereignty and global capital often clash because they're solving different issues. Global capital doesn't give a shit about whether your country's flooded with illegal immigrants. They want cheap labor, okay? Global capital doesn't give a shit about your local energy needs. They look at the whole picture. They don't care if industry is in your town and you have a good job. They'll move it to wherever it's cheapest. That's just the way it works. Part of the recent move against this and move back towards patriotism and nationalism, you might even see as being part of the reason Brexit happened. Okay, they're tired of the EU, and whether the EU even makes another 10 or 20 years remains to be seen. There's a lot of fragmentations, particularly around the Ukraine conflict. You can see what is being said about Hungary, for example. They're one of the few saying we should not be doing this war, whereas everybody else is cheering it on. So there's a lot of dissent, even in groups that should be working together. But that's just part of the story, because the real story, of course, is the rise of the tech overlords and how that shapes the new world order. Because what we're talking about here are making near, I don't want to use the word God, but let's say God-like intelligences. Okay? What they're doing now at the AI labs is truly terrifying. For example, they put AI in charge of running geopolitical scenarios. And guess what? In 95% of the situations, they chose to nuke everybody. That was all the AI systems too. Wasn't just like, oh, just Claude did that. No, it was Claude, Gemini, ChatGPT, Grok, everybody nuked. All the LLMs decided, screw it, nuke it, be done with it. That's a scary world. And it's being run by secret algorithms with massive tech overlords who, guess what? They're part of the transnational capital class. They don't give a shit about you. Okay? The tools that are being built right now, robotics and automation, huge unemployment crisis coming. That'll be part of the New World Order and how they help roll out central bank digital currencies, digital IDs, AI systems, military technology. There will literally be death murder robots coming. Oh, you don't think they're going to put guns in the hands of those robots? Of course they are. Programmable money. Okay? It's a very scary system if you let the tech overlords run everything. Because do you trust them? I sure as hell don't. Robot soldiers. Everyone's unemployed. The world's scary. Danger everywhere. Roll out central bank digital currencies and they'll be the final coup in human freedom. And they're working right now at the highest levels of power. Now, you might say, well, but maybe Elon Musk, one of the good guys. Maybe. It's just one guy. You trust Sam Altman? You trust many of these other guys? I sure as hell don't. Then, of course, the military layer. What's happening right now, the face of modern warfare is terrifying. Hunter-killer drones killing people way beyond front lines. Missiles that can reach very deep in enemy territory. This is not your granddaddy's war, okay? World War III, if it happens, and to some extent it's already brewing in the background, will be more terrifying than anything you can imagine. Grr. Why do crazy people run the world, man? Just put farmers in charge of running the governments, man. We wouldn't have any of this bullshit happening. Anyway, military spending compared to the rest of the world, of course, America still is number one, but total brute numbers that America spends, I think, doesn't fully represent the picture. You know, Russia's only at 61 billion, for example, but you have to understand that the cost of labor in Russia is dramatically cheaper than the USA. The cost of production in Russia and China is dramatically cheaper. So if you look at just, oh, that's how much money America's spending, yeah, it's a lot. It's a big number, man. But if you look at what's actually being produced, if you look at China's technology, for example, or the experience Russia's now having fighting this war in Ukraine against all the best shit from NATO, start to understand a bit of the picture, okay? Now look, obviously the asset managers want capital to keep flowing. They don't really care about how or why it happens, okay? Banks want to remain in control. Crypto wants to compete with everything. Sovereign states want autonomy. Technologists want contracts, data, energy, and endless scale, and to ideally be in control of all the algorithms that dictate your daily life so they can sell you shit. They're the less evil of the ones here. But when you put the military layer on top of that tech, and we've seen a deep integration already of AI with the Pentagon in the USA, and all the big American AI companies are working with them, things start to become scary. This is the New World Order, okay? A techno-feudalism is slowly forming up. Now, that all being said, don't waste a good opportunity, guys. Still money to be made. And of course, if you don't make money in the next few years, your risk of being a victim of CBDC government handouts increases exponentially. Okay, so own productive assets, whether you like it or not. Defense is still a very interesting sector to put money into. I don't love it, but I understand the value proposition behind it. Energy, power, critical minerals, AI, and robotics. This shit's only gonna get bigger, man. It's only gonna get bigger. Okay? And of course, Bitcoin. Despite short-term fluctuations in the price, Bitcoin, I think, remains a very important part of this New World Order because there will be a lot of people who don't want to opt into this system because the system that's being built is evil. Understand that. Thanks for watching. Bye.